Now back on the Inter typeface page, if we scroll down the page, we'll notice we have our regular and our bold samples here. But further down, what we'll see is we have all the 9 different versions, but also Inter is offered both as a traditional constant font file, as in one per style, like what we're using right now, but as well a variable font version. So what we can do is start changing the thickness of the font and also the slant of the font as well. So we can see this kind of lean over at each one. Now, how do we add a variable font to our page? Well, we don't have that loaded at the moment. We have our regular bold and our regular. So what we're going to do is add in our project. We've got assets. And in here at the bottom, we've got this inter-var WOF2. So I'm just going to add this to our page as well. So this one's a little bit bigger. Here we go. We've got this kind of added. So instead of me using the kind of regular and bold version of this, we've got a variable font version instead. So what I'm going to do is add this to my project in the same way. Now, what this means is I can get rid of bold completely and change my regular for just inter var. Now, unfortunately, WOF1 doesn't support variable type, so it's just WOF2. So I'm just going to put it as this for now. And what we can see if we go back to the page is pretty much the same as before. So how come this still flicks between the two? Well, basically at the moment what we said is our font weight is 400 and we're doing that animation up to 700 as well. But basically what we need to do is tell our variable font to change. Now, unfortunately, we can't change a variable font with font weight only. We're actually going to change it in a different way. So we actually have a few things that we need to change in here. We could change the weight of this and the slant of this, but if I scroll down this page, it doesn't really tell you how this works. Now, if I right click this and I go to inspect, what this will do is it'll pop up some CSS to tell us how to use this. And it's actually in this font-variation-settings. I can change the weight and the SLNT, the slant in there, and basically add a number in here. Now, the reason for this is so that older browsers know how to do this, so it doesn't automatically just change lots of things without knowing that it needs to change. So what we're going to do is actually go in here, not change the font weight, but the font. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a change. We're going to change the font variation settings. Now, it's not 400 because there's more things to change than just the weight of the font. There's also the slant. So it needs to know which things to change. So I'm just going to get rid of 400 for now. And instead, put in quotes, I want to change the WGHT. And this one is going to be 400. Comma, I can also change the slant, the, in quotes, SLNT. And this one is 0. We don't want any slant in here. Now, this weight and slant actually comes from the variable font family itself. Each one might work a little bit differently, and you kind of have to read the instructions. In Inter, there isn't really good instructions, unfortunately, at this moment. So we have to look and see how it works. Now, with this one, we're going to do this in the font weight under here as well. So this font variation settings is going to be looking quite similar. We're going to use weight, it's kind of short version of weight, and also the slant is 0 as well. So what we'll get now is something that looks like this. Notice how there isn't this kind of flick between the two. There we go. Now, what I can do on my final version is I don't actually have this stretch effect because I kind of start not needing it anymore. So I'm actually going to get rid of this transform. I'm going to get rid of this one from here, and I'm going to get rid of this one from here. All I need to worry about now is my variable font. So let's see how that looks. Now it's doing it quite slowly, and the reason for that is we're not making too much of a change. Maybe we want to make it a little bit thicker and maybe add some slant to this as well. So let's do that. Let's make it a little bit thicker by doing 900 instead. And also maybe let's slant this over to one side. Now, how do I do that? Again, which way do I want to do this? 0 to this way. So if I just right click this, that's kind of about right. Let's see what they've put in here. They've got their slant at -8.8. That goes into here. So we're going to kind of copy that as well. -8. So let's see it now. There we go. It gets a bit thicker. and then gets a bit thinner. Now what I might want to do on the kind of final version is separate these out a little bit more. Notice that the space between each letter gets bigger too. So what we're going to do is the last thing is add one more thing in here. We're going to add one more CSS rule in our animation called letter spacing. By default, we just want it to be 0. The kind of start looks correct. So when it goes back over here, that looks good. It's when it gets thick. We want to add some more spacing between the two. So in here, I'm also going to add a letter spacing. And for now, maybe we want to make it something like 2px. So let's see how that looks. Maybe we want to add a little bit more. Now maybe let's make it 5. Let's see how that looks. There we go. So what we've added is this kind of animation using variable type now. We've added something that kind of can morph between these two, and also watch the kind of slant change as well. It goes from straight to a little bit kind of italic at the same time. And that's because these variable types can do this. That's built into this file format. It's a pretty clever little tool. Now, of course, what we've added into this project is a lot of new type things, but let's apply the same kind of principles to the next project. And we'll also add in one new layer to this, JavaScript.